Now let's work on finishing the back wheel. So we still have a few pieces to build for the back wheel. I'm going to go ahead and make a wheel group out of this. So we'll select both of these objects, hit Control G, and then we can call this something like wheel back. Okay, and the center of that group, because it goes to the origin, is going to be right at the center of our wheel, so it'll rotate appropriately. All right, let's go ahead and move this wheel group up kind of into position here. You can see that matches up fairly well. Okay, so let's zero that back out. And we want to create this center piece, and so this is going to be kind of a complement to this second piece that we created. So we'll go ahead and create, and let's actually create another pipe. So we'll create a poly pipe, rotate this. Let's go ahead and shape it, and we want this to be a bit wider. So actually on the radius, we'll go ahead and make this, pull this up. And we want it to come and intersect and be right in with that seam there. Okay, I think that thickness is probably, we'll do thickness actually, maybe 0.6. Okay, now when we smooth this, I want to have a little bit of a gap there, so you can see that that actually works fairly well. Okay, we can change the subdivisions in the center if we want. We can change the subdivisions on the caps. So let's add a couple of subdivisions there. And then I'm going to select the one on this side and just scale it out so that it goes right out to the end. Gives us the same effect of using our Insert Edge Loop tool. Okay. Now we don't want it to be that wide, so we can go ahead and scale that in a bit. And I want to make sure to have a little bit of a gap there. I don't want it to be super tight up on that. Okay. Now we can isolate. And I want to add 2 edge loops here. So we'll go into our Insert Edge Loop tool. We'll use multiple edge loops, and we'll add 2 once again. Okay, with those 2 selected, let's just scale them out a little bit. So give them a little bit more room. Select the face and shift, double click to select the loop of faces. And now we're going to extrude, but this time we're going to extrude in to make room for that piece that we extruded out from the other piece. So push that in. Okay, so we don't really see it that much, but now that slot can fit inside there, and it just matches up a little bit more. And we want to have a little bit of a gap there. Now I want to leave this bottom part smooth. Okay, so you can see how we've sharpened up the top, but we can actually just leave that smooth by not adding any more resolution to that. Okay, so we get something like that. Now if we want to add a little bit of thickness to it, we can go ahead and select, actually just select our faces in the center here and kind of scale them in a little bit to increase the thickness of that. Alright, so we just have one more piece to add for the back wheel, and that's this sort of frame piece that we have here. Okay, so let's go ahead and I'm going to add this to our group. Okay, so I'll control click and hit P to add that to our wheel back group. You can see that I'm not doing a very good job of naming at this point. You probably want to stop every few lessons and start to name things. I'll usually get in a groove and start to just build things and not necessarily worry about naming until I've got a certain section built, and then I'll go back and name it. Sometimes even naming things at the end if it's not too complex. So it's really up to you. So we'll go ahead and take this and move it into position here. All right, and now we want to create this piece. So I'm going to again create a poly pipe. Let's rotate it, and then we'll move it into position here. Change our radius. Okay, just match it up with what we're seeing there. Increase that radius just a bit. So we get something like that. Okay, now we only need from here to here. So let's actually get rid of some of this geometry. So I'm going to go ahead and just drag across these polygon faces and delete them. That leaves us with this, okay, which is open on the end. So let's go ahead and first scale it down a bit. Okay, now to fill this in, there are a few things that we can do. We can just double click on this border to select that, and then we want to go to Mesh, Fill Hole to fill that with a polygon. We can do the same thing down here to fill that in. Now we want to extrude out those little pieces. So we'll select those polygons, which are these on the ends, go to Extrude, and just push those out in the Z until they intersect. Now because they're going to be inside, the ends of these are going to be inside this mesh here, I can go ahead and delete those polygons. We don't need those. Alright. If we need to do some modifications to this, we can. I'm going to go ahead and smooth it. We can click on any of those points, make sure that they're penetrating in where they need to be. Alright, now I want to taper this a little bit, so I'm going to actually select all of the points on the outside here, or inside, I guess. And so go ahead and select all of those, and then I just want to scale them, but I only want to scale them in the Y. So we'll just scale those in to kind of sharpen things up a bit. Alright, now I want to sharpen things up here by adding some edge loops. So I'll go to Insert Edge Loop tool, and let's actually turn this off and just add some edge loops in there. If we want to tighten up this curve right here, we can add a couple of edge loops. Again, hitting 3 to smooth. And it looks like we can come in here and narrow that in a little bit as it comes in here. Maybe something like that. And we'll just do the same thing down here. So we get a little bit better line where it penetrates in there. Alright, we want to sharpen this curve up right here. You can just add an edge loop. So as you do this, you'll get used to knowing where you want to add the edge loop. So knowing that we want to sharpen this up, we would add an edge loop here, or both, to create that sharpness. Alright, so we end up with something like that. Okay, so the next thing that we want to do is to take this and actually use it to build a front wheel. And that's going to be a little bit different because we're going to actually have some spokes and do a little bit more of a traditional wheel for that. So we'll go ahead and do that in the next lesson.